Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Today I have a very special guest, Mr. Ryan Pitts, who's running for WISD Place 7. How are you doing, sir?
Doing good, DV. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Like we were discussing a little bit, it was a long day, but it's
Uh,
not your fault.
well, I understand that. So,
So you have, if you've noticed, there's been a lot of people that's moved into town. So, like I asked every candidate to go ahead and kind of just tell me about them, kind of a personal bio, real quick, and tell the people of
yeah,
Ellis County.
yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Ryan Pitts. I'm running for WISD Place 7. I'm born and raised here in Waxahachie. I'm fourth generation. I have a heart and passion to serve our community. I currently serve as a vice president for Waxahachie Care. The past 2 years, I've been the president of Waxahachie Foundation, finally now past president. So that's been good, but I've really enjoyed that. It's a great organization. I'm the secretary of the Waxahachie Chamber of Commerce. I serve on the YMCA board here in Waxahachie. I'm on my HOA board, and I'm also on my serve on the long range planning committee for WISD. So I'm CEO of Ellis County Title Company. My wife and I have two children. We have a 3-year-old and a 10-month-old, Evelyn and Reagan, and went to SMU for my undergrad and went to down to Austin UT School of Law for my law degree. So, as I said, I'm running for WISD Place 7. I think WISD needs to do all that they can to offer endless opportunities to all students so that we can prepare our next generation for whatever they want to do.
Definitely, and it starts in these schools. So I ask every candidate that comes on kind of fundamentals. But before I get to those fundamentals, I wanted to ask you, um, why exactly did you want to run for WISD board member?
Well, I just kind of said it.
Sorry.
No. I'm my two little kids, my 3-year-old and my 10-month-old, are really the two that got me interested. I've always been interested in the school board. I grew up. My dad served on the school board for 10 years, and so I'm no stranger to the school board, and I know the responsibilities and the commitment, and how important it is. And so where WISD sits today, we're at a critical time, and if we don't get it right moving forward, we're not only going to hurt the next generation, but the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. So, Waxahachie's a wonderful place, as you know, and I want to make sure that Waxahachie, the city, stays a great place to live. And the number one thing that influences that is what our schools do.
And yes, it is a great place. Waxahachie is definitely a great place. So I completely agree with you there. So it does take a lot of time and commitment, as you
It
saw with
does.
your father. If it's not a thing that you want to take lightly, you want to read over some of the agenda stuff and all the paperwork that as a board member you would get. So you're a lawyer, and you got your family and stuff. And so do you have the time to commit to the duties of a board member?
Oh, absolutely. And I would not be running if I didn't. My wife and I kind of have a saying that you always make time for what's most important. And if I'm elected, this becomes most important, behind my family and my faith and work. And so, um, you know, serving on this position, I will not take lightly. I will not only come prepared to meetings, I'll come prepared to ask questions, and be ready to go to represent the taxpayers. And I think that's one thing that WISD needs is more transparency of fiscal responsibility. So I hope to bring that to the board, if elected.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're ready for the job. Are you ready to jump in?
I
Um,
am.
and you've been on a lot of boards, and you've been around, and so now you're ready to jump into the political arena. And I thank every candidate that comes on here for wanting to do that, because it is the meat grinder of local politics. It can get quite
Yeah,
intense, and so yeah, it's good that you want to volunteer to help your community.
yeah. It's
So Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Waxahachie's given so much to me and my family, and I would want to do anything I can to give back. And that's the way I grew up, is seeing what you can do for your community and giving back. And so that's why I'm running.
And that's a good thing. So, going one of the fundamental issues that I was going to ask you about was what is the proper role of the of government in the lives of people?
Limited government. The government needs to have the least amount of influence on your daily life. And I think, local government has the most influence on your daily life, the state level, the next, and then the federal level, not as much your daily life, maybe your yearly life when you have to pay taxes, but income tax. But, it's government should let us do what we do, and government should worry about self and make sure it's providing the services for all, and that you know stay out of our business at the end of the day.
Well, limited government. The reason why I ask those fundamentals is everything that you do will be based on those fundamentals. So you can say anything, but
Right,
your fundamentals is what you're going to go back to. And
right,
so that's why I ask every candidate that comes on about that.
right.
So one of the biggest issues, and it hasn't affected Waxahachie ISD too much, but obviously it's all over the country and MISD is the CRT SEL debate. It's
Hmm.
all over the online sphere. It's all over. It's a discussion, and some parents are concerned that their kids are being told some divisive stuff, and some other parents are like, hey, you don't even know what CRT means. So ugly there's a lot of ugly stuff going on. So
Yeah,
while WISD doesn't see a lot of it, you might run into that. So I wanted to
yeah.
go ahead and get your take on CRT and SEL.
So CRT should not be allowed in our classrooms. And luckily, in the last special session that our Texas legislature had, they passed a bill that limits what CRT can be taught. And I think that was a great move by the legislature and Governor Abbott. But still, you mentioned special emotional learning, social emotional learning, and with social emotional learning, some nowadays, CRT itself, they're not calling it CRT because it's coming in through social emotional learning, and so I think we've got to be vigilant to make sure that the social emotional learning is limited. I think a lot of our interactions of this generation that's in our schools today is too much, you know, on your phone and not face to face. And I think if we kind of face tone down some of this, I don't, the social emotional learning, I don't know if it's needed as much. We need to be teaching our kids what they need to learn in school, and that's um, the basic subjects you and I learned when we were in school. So I think we need to remain focused on that, and I think in today's world, uh, school may not necessarily always be like what you and I learned, because you have the technical aspects, you have the STEM aspects, you have different aspects that are coming into education too. But we need to be vigilant. And as you said, Waxahachie has been very fortunate that we have not had an issue. But with our growth and people moving in, you never know when that we will. And so, as a school board member, I will remain vigilant. I'll question things, look at our funding that we're getting to make sure there aren't any strings attached to it, and keep Waxahachie School District in line with the values of our community.
Okay. Mr. Pitts, how do you deal with a constituent, a parent, walks at your parent that says, Mr. Pitts, I don't like the way you're doing something. If you were elected, I don't like your opinion on this, and I don't like this, and you might run into those people. So how do
Oh
you
yeah,
deal with those parents that don't agree with you, but
right,
you represent them?
right. I think when you represent, if you're elected, if I'm elected, I represent everybody. And so I need to sit down. If somebody wants to come to me with an issue, I need to sit down and I need to listen to them. I need to hear them out. Um, and I'm not going to always be right. And I'm going to count on the community to educate me and to help me stay vigilant. And so, while somebody may go, oh, well, Ryan's not going to agree with me. I'm not going to go see him, or I'm going to go confront him. The biggest thing I've learned is you have to listen. And if you don't listen, you can't learn anything. And without learning, you can't take action. And so my biggest thing is I'd listen and hear what they had to say, and then I would evaluate from there.
Well, what are your thoughts on what is your overall opinion on transparency in the board?
I think it's interesting. I think sometimes the board put you can go watch the meetings online, the agendas online, and all that type of stuff. But other than that, there's no communication to the public regularly from board members, via social media, website, blog, whatever. And I think that is a something that needs to be brought to the board. I mean, yes, you do have board members that will communicate via social media when there are important things that need to be put out there. But I think it'd be good for the citizens and voters of Waxahachie to know exactly what's going on in the school board and know exactly what's going to be considered at a meeting and what's going on in some of those in the different meetings that take place in association with school board. And so that's one thing I want to bring to the board is more transparency. And one thing, funny story, when I went to the last school board meeting, when I walked in the door, there was a lady there who immediately stopped me and said, "Oh, excuse me, sir, where are you going?" And started asking me all these questions. And in my head, I'm thinking, wait, I'm going to a public meeting. I shouldn't have to sit here and be asked all these questions. And so I think we just need to make sure the public feels that the board is being transparent and has access to the meetings and everything that the public deserves to see and know.
Yeah. And I got a chance to interview the superintendent, and I also got a chance to interview one board member, and that is Mr. Autry, the president of the board. He keeps a very tight ship, and I was
Yes, he does.
a very tight ship. I've seen him. He runs those board meetings, and I was very grateful that he came on and talked with me about a year ago, I think it is now. Probably going to ask him to come back. So it is transparency is a definite issue that parents want to be able to reach out to those elected officials and when they have those problems. So one of the problems that parents talk about online a lot is bullying. So I don't know exactly how WISD is dealing with bullying issues, but I know that it is an issue in MISD. So a parent comes up to you and says, "Hey, Mr. Pitts, my kid is being bullied, and I've talked to this person and that person, and it just it hasn't helped. Can you help me? What are some of the things that you'd like to do?"
So bullying should not be tolerated in our schools at all, and so that's something that I would not take lightly. The role of school board member is to hire a superintendent and to oversee the superintendent. And so if a parent came to me, I would go to the superintendent and try to get my facts of what's going on and ask the questions of why things have not, why action hasn't been taken. And so, as a school board member, you trust that your administration is doing what they should. And Waxahachie has a phenomenal administration. Can't speak enough about Dr. Hollingsworth. I think he's been a great hire for WISD. Glad to have him here. I think he, will be able to carry us in the future. But
agreed.
The biggest thing is I think bullying shouldn't be tolerated. But that's, as a school board member, that's going to be something that I'm going to have to go get my facts on how the administration's handling it, from the top all the way down to the principal and the teachers at that school, and get to the bottom of it to make sure that it's not happening.
Yeah, and it is something that does happen, and a lot of kids are affected by it. I mean, back in the day, you could handle those things a little differently when I was a kid. I'm older than you, but you could handle those things. You can't do that anymore.
No,
So
it's
uh,
different world.
it's a different world. So you gotta go within the system. So education took a big hit during COVID. The test scores have gone down. Just about every kind of statistic has shown that there's been major learning loss, especially in special education. And I'm going to touch on special education in a minute. But just in general, what do you think as a board member? What would you like to see the school district do to achieve that academic growth that from all the loss that they had?
I think one of the most important things that really hurt kids during COVID was not being in the classroom. Um, I personally am a hands-on learner. I have to have something in front of me. I have to feel it, I have to touch it. And I think, there's a lot of us that are like that. And I think not being in the classroom, not having those social interactions with your peers and with the teachers, um, I think it really hurt kids. And, earlier this year, you had several school districts around WISD that were shutting down because they had spikes in COVID. And WISD made the decision to move forward. And I think that was a great decision because we didn't take our kids back out of the classroom. We were able to keep them there and to keep them learning. But I think we've got to make sure that the kids that had to go through COVID, that they are where they should be, and not obviously not every kid is. I think we'll talk about here in a minute. Every kid learns differently, so you've got to kind of adjust it. But there are the benchmarks that kids should be at, and so I think as teachers, if that student was in third grade last year, they're fourth grade now. We need to be looking to make sure that they're where they need to be, and make sure that we give them the resources they need to catch up.
Yeah, and the resources are definitely needed, and they're just there has to be a different approach because it's hard to cram 1 year of education in one
Right.
year.
Right. Well, and
So
it seemed like during COVID, from what I would hear, that it seems like things were getting crammed into a month, in some places. And, I can't, these students can't learn anything in a month that they need to know for the rest of their life.
right, and that is so true. So COVID came and there was a big debate about masks. I mean, and WISD handled it a certain way, and of course we can't second guess their choices because it was all new, it was all fresh. But
Right.
what is your personal opinion on, and how would you vote if something like masks came up again?
Well, you touched on that earlier, about where I feel that the stance in government is. And my stance in government is limited government. And so, one of those things is, you know, individual having the freedom to wear a mask or not. Um, and so I think that just as a whole, if something like that came up, if there was a true health emergency or a reason that particular kids needed to wear a mask or do something, obviously I don't want to get in a box and say I'm not. No one should ever wear a mask. But my overall stance is with limited government, we shouldn't be telling students that they have to wear a mask. Um, Without very, 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 very good reason. And COVID was serious, or still is serious. Um, and I think that the hardest thing with COVID is with the mask thing is, every day it seemed like CDC was coming out something brand new. And so, at the end of the day, who knows what effect they really have. And I'm a strong believer in limited government, and that you should stay out of my life. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, hey,
But
no, I understand that. I understand that sentiment. Yeah. So, but you know, I definitely, that's why I brought it up because, we were kind of floating in the COVID sphere. But going back to the learning thing, special education, ESL, maybe communities of color, students of color, there, different demographics took this major hit. And I'm sure that there is discrepancies between certain schools in the city and certain other schools in the city. And so um, I, I'd like to know what your thoughts on specifically on special education, because it's probably the thing that's least talked about um, in these interviews. I ask, but it's one of those things that's kind of not the hot button issue, and it doesn't
Yeah,
have the advocacy that it needs. But I'll add one more thing: um, the funding for special, or the mandates for special education are plentiful. The funding
right.
is not. So, as a board member, what are some of the things you'd like to do, or would you support to help special needs kids?
So the first thing is, I think and I have not hidden behind it at all. Special education is something that's very, very personal to me, and a lot of that stems from my personal experience. When I was in fourth grade, um, my teacher at the time, Miss Brewster, um, called my parents and said something's not right with Ryan. I was going to Shackleford here at WISD, and she said something's not right with Ryan, and I think he should get tested for learning differences. And so um, I got tested, and sure enough, you name it, I have it. And that's something that I was at the time did not understand, but my parents understood what that meant for me and my education. And so at the time, they set me up for I would go to Saturday school in the fall and in the spring, and then I would do summer school at a school in Dallas called the Shelton School. And the school specializes for kids with special education. And so my parents started that to help uh, me get to where I needed to be. So I went to Waxahachie up through eighth grade. When it came time for me to go to high school, we sat down with the counselor, got everything ready to go for me to go to WHS. And my parents said, "Whoa, something's not, your schedule's not right." So, went and talked with them, and I said, "Well, with the accommodations that Ryan needs and that we're required to give, um, he's going to have to be considered special ed, so he will not be able to be in regular classes." And so at that point, my parents made a very, very tough decision. It was a decision I was really not happy with at the time, and that was they pulled me out of WISD and I went to the Shelton School for high school. And that's something that still kind of stings a little bit today because, my sisters went to WHS, my mom went to WHS, my grandmother went to WHS. So I wanted to graduate in Indian and I didn't get that opportunity. But I wouldn't be sitting here probably talking to you if my parents would not have pulled me out of WISD. And it's simply because WISD at that time could not provide me the things that I needed to succeed and the things I wanted to do. When I got to Shelton, they asked me what I wanted to do, and I said I want to go to law school, and they said, "Ha, good luck." And now I've done that, graduated from SVU, graduated from UT Law, and so um, they taught me how to deal with my learning difference. So disability and difference. At Shelton, they always taught us to say difference because it's not a disability, it's not something that can hinder you, and obviously there's differences on that, but I want every kid to be able to have the opportunities I have. Not everybody can afford to send their children to a private school that specializes with learning differences and learning disabilities. And so I want the public schools in Texas, to be able to provide the resources. And as you said, they're lacking. And with the mandates that are coming down from the state and federally, compared to what the funds are, it's very different. And so this is something when I ran for state rep a couple of years ago, I was very adamant about. If I got to Austin, that would be one of the first bills that I wrote, would be to help with special education. And the same goes here for WISD. One of my first things that I'm going to start pushing for is to look at the special education budget and see what improvements can be made, and what we can do as a school district to better serve these students. Because I don't want there to be another kid like me that really wants to graduate from Waxahachie to not get that opportunity. So,
Will you involve other stakeholders like the parents in trying to find out, the parents of these special needs kids, and trying to find out what the kids need?
oh, absolutely. And I think, I actually had somebody the other day message me, and they do not live in Waxahachie. They live over in West Texas, and they asked me, about if I knew of an advocate or an attorney or somebody that could help with their son. And that's the thing is parents aren't getting the attention that they deserve in advocating for their children when they need to. And so I think absolutely I'll work with parents to see what needs to be done.
Unfortunately, that is a very real thing that's happening now. You're
Mm-hmm.
starting to get education attorneys that have to come in and help with dealing with these schools and special education to provide the services that are needed by the child.
Yeah.
I've had to experience that. I've advocated, and I've had advocates help me, because special education is the beast. For lack of a
Yeah.
better word, it's a beast, and there's a lot of things that a lot of parents, unless you spend all day looking through these
Yeah.
things, you will not know. And the school, well, I mean, they have to protect, they want to help the kids, but they also have to protect the budget, so they may not be so into all the,
Right.
so that's why I asked you that question. And I mean, I myself had to do that with my kid and put my kid in a private school, and that hurts. that
Yeah.
that bites,
Yeah.
because
And not only on the pocketbook, but also,
yeah,
you know,
that hurts. So um you know, one of the things that I talked with Mr. Dr. Hollingsworth, and I agree with everything you said about him. I've had him on 2 times, and it was very informative interview. So, one of the things he was talking about was like the Marvin Elementary School was doing a nursing or a medical kind of concentration thing going on, and they even partnering with Baylor, I believe, is what was put out. So, um, all that goes into like a CTE and getting them prepared for the outside, getting students prepared from the outside, putting them in kind of tracks to do these things that they're interested in.
right.
I'm a big fan of the trades, and I believe you can, I know you can make a very good living doing the trades, and I also know that not everybody's meant for college.
Right.
So I wanted to go ahead and get your input on CTE and some of the things you will do to support that.
So I think Special Waxahachie has a phenomenal CDE program. I mean, you look at everything from going to eat at the reservation, going to the Ellis County Expo to see what those kids are able to do in the ag program. The beautification school. There's a lot of programs and a lot of things that kids are getting the opportunity to do at Waxahachie High School that simply is preparing them for what they want to do in the future. And I think that's the most important thing: is what does the kid want to do, and if there is a program or a class or something that helps them get to their end goal and what they want to do, being able to offer that, I think is priceless. And I think that sets Waxahachie really apart from other schools in being able to provide that. And so I'm a huge proponent of it, huge proponent of, partnering with TSTC up in Red Oak to offer even more opportunities for some of our kids to get in some of those specialized fields that, as you said, um, some kids aren't cut out for college. Some simply just don't want to go. And so giving the opportunity for kids to do something else is great. And I'll definitely stand up for it and try to actually improve it. One thing I recently suggested was that maybe Waxahachie should look at a CTE focused high school, career technical focused high school. And I think that's something that the more options you give, the more choices you give your students and your parents, the better off the district's going to be. And I think being able to provide these specialized opportunities. I mean, you said a second ago about the funds, going to college and how much that costs. I mean, some of these guys that are going to TSCC are probably get out of there making more than somebody that has an MBA graduating from Baylor. So, it's phenomenal what these kids are able to do when they want to do it and when they want to put the work in. It's something they're passionate about. And so I think it's great to give those opportunities.
Yeah, the trades, especially certain trades, they'll put six figures in your pocket quick,
Real quick, yeah.
real quick.
So
And so,
that's it's phenomenal to give those kids that opportunity that would not thrive in a college environment.
yep. So I'm going to change gears a little bit before we close out. We're getting close to the end. So I wanted to ask you, property taxes. We're getting, there's been articles all over the place that we're going to get a sticker shock, expect 20% valuation growths. And it's been all over the local DFW media. And
Right.
so people are already struggling paying their property taxes, and the biggest part of those property taxes would be the school taxes. So what is going to be the way you, if you're elected and you're put on the board, how are you going to handle the taxing and the spending, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, so as I said earlier, one of the main roles of school board member is to hire and oversee the superintendent. The next big role, and the biggest role, in my opinion, because you're elected by the taxpayer, and they are electing you to go be their voice and their eyes and their ears when dealing with their hard-earned money. And as you just said, a majority of your property tax bill does go to schools, and that's the way Texas has done it for years. And I think that every school district needs to really look at what they need, and what things that, a school district like Waxahachie, we've got to plan for the future. But how do you do what you need and plan for the future? We need to look at that and set our tax rate accordingly. Um, Waxahachie's done a great job with the tax rate. Obviously, tax rate I would always love to be lower, because I think everybody would. But what's also killing us is the rising price of housing, and that's something I see every day at work. Is how what people are paying for these houses and what their appraisals are coming back at, and it's just unheard of what's going around Waxahachie right now. And so, I think with that, that also has a benefit that brings you increased tax base. And so, I think also the school district working with the city to help with attracting companies that will increase our tax base, and to do those alternative things that we can maybe take some pressure off the citizens of Waxahachie, and get some of our money from other people, instead of pricing people out of their houses, because I think that's really happening right now, and people are hurting. And Waxahachie is a great place to live. I love growing up here, raising my family here, and I can't imagine not being here. And I would not know what to do if I had to leave my house because of my property taxes. And I can't imagine what those people are feeling. And so I think we need to do all that we can to make sure that that's not happening, and make sure that we're being fiscally responsible with taxpayer money, and using it very, very wisely. And it's, as I said, Waxahachie ISD is growing. And so we need to make sure that we're prepared for that growth. And that's one of my things that, we need to look for the future, but we also need to make sure we're good stewards of taxpayer money.
Yeah, and taxing somebody out of their home is so wholly un-American. I mean, you
Yeah.
could afford the mortgage, but you can't afford the taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The great American dream is to own property in your own house. And, I could get into other things that I think with property taxes that needs to happen, but obviously that's not for here.
Mhm.
But, I think that, when it comes to your schools taxing you, that's one of the major responsibilities of the school board. And so I think you need to every year truly, truly, truly evaluate the need and set that property tax rate accordingly.
Well, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show. And first, before I give you to the audience to give your pitch, I want to commend you for um, you know persevering with your special needs, and doing going past what they told you you couldn't do. I love that story as soon as you said it, because it is a personal thing to me.
Yeah.
So I commend you for that. Becoming an attorney is is not easy for someone who doesn't have any kind of
I didn't understand
learning
that.
issues, and you did it. So bravo. I That's awesome, man.
Well, thank you. And you know, don't tell me I can't do something, because I'm going to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And and that's, I think we need to give everybody that mindset, and give everybody the opportunities um, and resources they can to do whatever they want to do, no matter what that is.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn you over to the parents of the WISD and the teachers and everybody else that you would be representing, and let you give them your final pitch.
Okay. All right. Well, DV, I want to thank you for having me on tonight. This has been fun. It's been a long time coming, so I enjoyed getting to talk with you. I
Thank
also
you.
enjoyed getting to share with the voters um, about me and my candidacy. I hope you were able to learn something. Um, but I'm Ryan Pitts. I'm running for WISD Place 7. The voters of Waxahachie ISD deserve a voice on the board who will be fiscally responsible with your tax dollars, as we were just talking about, and an advocate for teachers and a champion for students, and a voice for parents. The time is now for the board trustees to address the challenges of today while planning for tomorrow, because you can't build a school overnight, and you can't do some of these things overnight that Waxahachie is simply going to need to do. We need to plan, and we need to not only plan for tomorrow, we need to plan for years and years down the road, so that we are good stewards of tax money, and that we are addressing the community's needs to continue to offer a positive learning environment and a quality education, so that students can achieve their full potential. Um, as a business leader and as someone who's highly involved with the community, I experience every day the challenges that go on in our community. And I am ready to go be a fresh voice and provide a fresh vision on the WISD school board as we plan for the future. I will work with the city, I'll work with the county, I'll work with our state officials to make sure that Waxahachie ISD is in the best position it can to continue to offer our students quality education. Because the most important thing is the education and our students, and we need to make sure that they are taken care of, and that we're able to do that for years to come. So again, I'm Ryan Pitts. I'm running for WISD Place 7.
Well, again, I appreciate you wanting or you coming on the show. I tracked you down, and you were more than happy. I bugged you a little bit, but you were receptive and you came on the show, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that. When the candidates come on and talk to the people, because I'm just a conduit to get that information out. I just ask questions. So
And that's been great. So, and thank you for providing this for Ellis County, and doing this with all the various races. So
I,
it's the best voter is an informed voter. I don't care who you vote
that's
for, as long as you're educated.
that is
That's all that matters.
my motto. An informed society is a free society. So
Exactly.
uh, i uh i I will have Miss the incumbent, Miss Debbie Timmerman, on tomorrow at 6 p.m., and I will talk to her about the race and about the stuff with WISD and what's going on, and just like I did with Mr. Pitts. Sir, again, thank you so much for coming on, and you have a great night.
All right. You too. Thank you.
Bye bye.